In 1909, fledgling scouting, the first scout camp dates to 1907, sees arriving in its ranks a young boy of 15 years, John Gordon Hargrave. Son of a couple of itinerant artists of Quaker religion, he nourished early a taste for drawing and a propensity for self-education through reading. His scouting experience introduced him to nature, and by 1910 he published in newspapers and pamphlets naturalistic drawings he signed with his scout totem name White Fox. He became a professional illustrator in 1914. Throughout this period, he was supported by Baden-Powell, becoming one of the best specialists of woodcraft within the scouting movement. Woodcraft, literally the art of living in the woods, encompasses in the broadest sense the methods for living in forests. Camping, knowledge of fauna and flora, fishing, hunting, foraging, fire-making, hiking, orienteering, building shelters, first aid using natural resources, all are constituent elements of woodcraft, which is, in a certain way, one of the ancestors of survivalism. This art of forests was theorized for the first time by Frederick Russell Burnham and Ernest Thompson Seton, an American and a Canadian, both close observers of Native American life, to such a degree that one sometimes spoke of Indian woodcraft. Deeply imbued with Quaker thought, John Hargrave was an ardent pacifist who nonetheless found a way to reconcile his religious opinions and his patriotism. In the opening weeks of the First World War, at a time when conscription was not yet mandatory in the United Kingdom, he enlisted in the Royal Army Medical Corps as an ambulance attendant. It is in this capacity that he participated, from February 1915 to January 1916, in the Gallipoli campaign. More than 550,000 men were killed or wounded during these 11 months, and the horrors he discovered on the battlefield, as in military hospitals, anchored him definitively in his rejection of war. Peace returned, Hargrave rose up against his mentor Baden-Powell, against the evolution, judged by him as deleterious, of a scouting increasingly militarized, managed, and hierarchized. He saw in this the betrayal of the founding principles of the movement and of a pedagogy initially founded on the responsibility of children and adolescents through very wide autonomy. The crisis reached its apex and its resolution in August 1920 with the creation by Hargrave of a new organization and his expulsion from official scouting. The new movement adopted the strange name of the KINDRED of the Kibbo Kift. KINDRED for family, while Kibbo Kift comes from the Cheshire dialect and means the great strength. Often reduced to a simple progressive current of scouting because of its pacifism, the family of great strength professed a much more complex philosophy. Strong in his experience, Hargrave considered that the massacre of war illustrated the failure of the modern world. From then on, he advocated, through the Kibbo Kift, a return to nature, practicing a woodcraft inspired by Native Americans and medieval Saxon traditions. The members of the Kibbo Kift adopted for their regular activities complete Saxon clothing, hood, waistcoat, breeches, and long coat. To this was added a ceremonial costume that each member made to their own taste. Neo-medieval garments rubbed shoulders with Native American costumes and very Art Deco outfits. The movement was structured in clans, families, tribes, and lodges. Once a year, these groups met in Althing, from Old Icelandic, meaning popular assembly, named after the first Icelandic parliament in the year 930, faithful to the idea of empowering youth. All, children, adolescents, and adults, held equal weight in these assemblies. The Kibbo Kift enjoyed a very disreputable image at the time. Children and adolescents enjoyed great freedom, conducting their activities sometimes without adults. Moreover, the movement was perfectly mixed, which earned it the support of some former feminist and suffragette activists. The height of scandal was reached when it became known that certain groups influenced by von der Vogel, a German youth movement that appeared at the end of the 19th century in opposition to urban and industrial society, advocated and practiced naturism, sometimes in mixed groups. Beyond the old thing, the Kibbo Kift also met annually to make a pilgrimage to the site of the discovery of Piltdown men. We know today, since the 1950s, that this was a paleoanthropological hoax, but in 1908, the discovery of this skeleton presented as the missing link had enthused British scientific and intellectual circles, as it tended to prove that the first man was an island Briton. The cult paid by the Kibbo Kift to Piltdown man was part of Hargrave's ideological evolution toward identity and rootedness. In his quest, he would even distance himself from his Quakerism, first attempting a return to medieval Christian practice, then turning under the influence of James George Fraser's The Golden Bough toward ritual magical practices, Hargrave's intellectual gropings ended up earning him the distrust of the most leftist faction of the Kibbo Kift, all the more so as he temporarily drew closer to the Order of Woodcraft Chivalry, a movement very much at the forefront of the neo-pagan current and influenced by the writings of the occultist Aleister Crowley. The progressives of the Kibbo Kift, who had hoped the organization could become a left-wing counter-scouting, decided to attack Hargrave frontally. At the 1924 Althing, a motion was filed against him, demanding he step aside. Submitted to a vote, it was rejected, notably by the youngest of the kinsmen and kinswomen. The vanquished then founded Woodcraft Folk, a progressive scouting according to their wishes, which still exists today. Converted to the ideas of social credit, Hargrave undertook in the early 1930s to transform the Kibbo Kift into a political party. Social credit postulates that the monetary system should have as its ultimate goal the improvement of society. Very paradoxically, for a man who had contested the wearing of uniforms in scouting, his green shirt movement for social credit, and then his social credit party of Great Britain and Northern Ireland would be paramilitary. The struggle against misery, he argued, must be apprehended as a war. His initiative was hailed by such different personalities as John Steinbeck, Ezra Pound, and Thomas Edward Lawrence. The Social Credit Party disappeared in 1951 in general indifference. As for John Hargrave, who had returned to his profession as a draftsman, he died, forgotten, in 1982,